Stop.
Well, what have we here? Another TYT video. It was actually a bit delayed. I discovered this video much earlier. I mean, it aired much earlier, but I've decided to make a reaction now. So that's just what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna just react to this video. Yeah.
As always, last night's GOP debate left us a big steaming pile of inaccuracies and outright lies and just terrible deception that we like to weed through the day after the debate. Now, we don't have time to address all of the lies that were told, but we do want to cover at least a few so that going into the post-debate couple of weeks for the next one, you understand what's going on and you won't be misled. So here are a few of the ones that stood out to me. Donald Trump said, when you look at the line of immigration, you see no women. He's talking about Syrians here. Where are the women? I see no women. I see strong, powerful men.
Wow.
So the video just starts off with John just, you know, demonizing Republicans. I'm not a Republican, I'm a liberal, but, you know, just talking about Donald Trump, fear-mongering, how the right is always fear-mongering. I'm sorry, it's irrational to be afraid when women were just raped in Cologne. That's suddenly irrational? That's fear-mongering? I mean, it doesn't take much stirring for that to scare me as a woman. Yeah, I mean, what else can I say to that?
But
Yes.
it's par for the course for Trump and the Republican Party. It's about fear-mongering. It's about smearing the refugees and making them out to be dangerous individuals that are going to come after you and hurt you.
Yeah.
And it, unfortunately, resonates with the Republican Party.
I was surprised last night when I was watching it. I was surprised that he didn't in particular bring up, given his anti-Muslim position, bring up what we've seen unfold in Europe over New Year's Eve with the attacks that were reported attacks that went on in Cologne in particular, and other cities in Germany. When I say reported attacks, there's nothing inaccurate about them, but you know, we're getting 200 reports of 200 women. I'm sure you guys covered it.
Yeah.
It
was surprising that it wasn't brought up,
he didn't
actually.
sort of say.
Watch out for that guy, Elliot. I like him. And I think you will too.
This is a direct result of mass immigration, and this is why we need to be pushing back, because although, you know, these individuals, I don't think there's been any specific arrests as of yet, but in terms of the people that have been detained, there's some of them fit the profile of being North African, Moroccan.
Yes.
So in terms of, and there were one or two were Iraqis, Syrians. So, but as I said, there haven't been any specific arrests and no releases have been made. But I'm surprised he didn't
bring that
sort
up.
of say, you know, as a result of look at what's happening in Europe, do you really want that replicated here?
Yeah, I mean, look, that would have been a very easy and convincing way to play into that fear-mongering. But in order for him to do that,
to play into that fear-mongering? To play into it? Come on, Anna, I don't even think that's a real sentence. You're playing into fear-mongering? No, you don't play into fear-mongering, you do the fear-mongering. I mean, it's kind of a non-essential point, but seriously, just use your words correctly. I'm probably not using my words correctly, but you know what? I don't even care. Moving on.
but in order for him to do that, he would actually need to know and be aware of what's happening in the world.
Yes.
And he has no idea. I don't think he even knows.
He spends so much time on Twitter. How does he not get this news? He's on Twitter all day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right, he's playing into the fears. And so people who feel the fear of these refugees coming in or immigrants from that part of the world understand that while to you this might seem like this is this unique thing that I'm experiencing, this has been experienced in reference to every immigrant community in the history of immigrants. Every time people came over to America, we were afraid that they were lawless. If they're Irish, they're big drunks, they're going to commit crimes. The Italians, organized crime. That one actually turned out to be mostly accurate. We're always afraid of the immigrants.
The
it doesn't
Irish
matter what
thing's
they look
true
like.
too, but that doesn't matter.
No. Let me add to that. So I tweeted this.
Oh, Anna, You want to add to that? I wonder. I wonder what or who you're going to bring up to add to this situation of talking about the other. I wonder who. Let's find out.
But the Washington Post did this incredible piece that showed polling numbers during World War II and the number of Americans that were in favor of taking in Jewish refugees.
Yeah.
You want to know what that percentage was?
Yeah.
5%.
Yeah, I was going to say.
5% of
popular.
Americans wanted to take in Jewish refugees. We have a long history of not wanting to allow in the others,
Yeah.
okay? It's a very Orwellian ideology. Like, it's just...
Orwellian? You know, you say that word, but I don't think it means what you think it means, Anna. Orwellian. What does that even mean? What? What does it have to do with Orwell? Did you even read 1984? Are you just trying to use 1984 as like the epitome of bad? Because when you usually make a reference to 1984, you just don't make it randomly where you're talking about a bad situation and then compare that to 1984. In what situation in 1984 is there a crisis of people not wanting refugees to come into the country? What does that even mean? What part of Orwell in 1984 are you even talking about, Anna? Did you read it? Did you take an English class? Not a speaking English class, but you know, a language class, English literacy, whatever you call it, language arts, whatever you want to call it. Did you take one? Because you're not using Orwell correctly. Moving on.
It's very us against them.
Us against them. You think that's Orwell? What? That is not what Orwellian means. You know what? I know this is such a minor point, but I'm just so sick of you guys just throwing around all these buzzwords, all these terms, without actually understanding what they mean. I'm going to look up what Orwellian means. Give me 1 second. Orwellian. Orwellian is an adjective describing a situation, idea, or societal condition that George Orwell identified as being destructive to the welfare of free and open society. Free and open society. Well, free and open societies. You know what? It should be a free and open society for us, where women do not have to fear being raped, where women do not have to fear that as we're going to walk down the street, someone who comes from a culture that does not respect women, that they're going to attack us. That's part of being in a free and open society. That doesn't mean we leave our borders open. It's the society is within. Are we free within society? It does not mean that others are free to just enter our borders. You don't understand what it means to be free. You think that freedom applies to everyone else but us, that we as Americans are not entitled to our freedom, our safety, our security. And you dare call that Orwellian. Come on, Anna. Come on.
We need to change our mentality and understand why these people are trying to leave their own countries and everything that they've known, everything that they've built.
Yeah.
It's not to come here and harm you. And by the way, are all of them going to be innocent? Probably not. Not everyone is innocent, right? But that's why we have a justice system. That's why we can prosecute. As I've said during the Cologne coverage that we've done, if any of those people are proven to be the attackers and they're also proven to be migrants from Syria or any other part of the Middle East, not only do you deport them, you prosecute them, you make sure justice is served, and you get them the hell out of the country.
Yes.
Right? You ensure that there are...
But okay, yeah, and I don't disagree with that. But what I think is that what he's driving at is the fundamental, and what we're talking about here with the segregation of or reluctance to take in Jewish people. There's the laws that were brought out in 1882, the anti-Asian laws with Japanese and Chinese actually, the Chinese Exclusion Act. Thank you. Is the fact that there's that cultural dislocation.
Yes.
And so what they're preying on now, what they're highlighting now, and I have some sympathy with this but I have to couch it carefully, and I'd be interested to know what you think, is in terms of the treatment of women, specifically. Okay, so we come back to this debate about men and women again today. It's how the rich Western countries, the role of women in those countries, how that is viewed and how that is at variance to how women are portrayed and how they're viewed in Muslim countries. And that is kind of what this whole Cologne debacle is really about, right?
Yes.
It's not about the process of law, about under-policing and all of those things. It is the fact that we feel that there is a cultural mismatch, and how can we best assimilate, integrate, whatever word you want to use, when there's an onslaught, there's described as an onslaught. And I have some sympathy with that when you have 1.1 million refugees arriving in Germany alone last year, with thousands more arriving every day, how you cannot but be overwhelmed.
I totally understand that.
That is really kind of the driver, right?
Yes. And look, okay, so there's so many different things that I want to respond to. But first of all, just going back to the numbers that John mentioned, if the majority of Syrian refugees are women and children...
Lies. Lies. All lies. No. No, Anna. No. The majority of these refugees, unfortunately, are not women and children. In fact, some of the people are posing as children. If you want to just do a quick Google search, I'm too lazy right now to look it up, but maybe I should. The majority of these people are men. Men between the ages of 20 and they're like in their 20s and 30s. I mean, come on, don't lie. We can all have sympathy for the innocent people who are being hurt by this conflict, but to lie about the situation, to lie to the people in order to push your agenda is really an unfortunate and an insidious thing to do. You cannot lie about the situation because you think that it will benefit the greater good. I mean, you are not in that position. You are not in a position of power where you are able to lie for the greater good. We know what's happening. This isn't a, oh, if I tell the truth, everyone's gonna die moment. I mean, come on. It's not like you're holding the secret to the nukes. I mean, come on, Anna. You can't lie. You are in a space where you're not a journalist. I mean, I think you guys think of yourselves as journalists with opinions, and you want to be accurate. You want to report the facts. You can have an opinion, Anna, but to base that on inaccuracy, come on. No integrity. It shows you have no integrity. You and the rest of TYT. Come on, Anna. You can do better. Oh, maybe you can't.
Well, then, they're women and children that should be allowed into the country, regardless of what you think about the way women are thought of or portrayed in Middle Eastern countries, right? So
Agreed.
that's point number one.
Good
Point number two is there are European countries right now that have assimilation training. They don't call it assimilation training, but they're understanding that there are cultural differences. I've talked about this during the Cologne coverage, and people purposely misinterpreted what I said, okay? The cultural difference is that women are supposed to be modest, right? They're supposed to have very traditional gender roles. And that doesn't mean that all Muslim men want to rape women who aren't modest.
Yes, very, very traditional gender roles where, women have to cover themselves. Not always the face, but if a woman doesn't cover, I'm actually wearing a bandana, but that would be considered not correct if we're talking about, let's go back to orthodoxy, but I'm actually not wearing this for religious reasons at all. But if you go like this hairline, yeah, it's about being not provocative and trying to be not attractive to the opposite sex. And if in Islamic culture, they usually go further. I don't have anything right now within my reach, and I don't want to get up. But it's about, modesty. But what happens when you're not modest? What's the consequence for not being modest? If a Muslim woman is supposed to dress in hijab is not just the headscarf. It's a way of, I don't have the correct words to define it right now, but it's just your entire dress. You're dressing in hijab. It's haram. It's kosher. And it's about being modest. It's about not showing yourself in any way that men will find attractive. And otherwise, men, in a way, have a right to rape you. Why? Well, because you didn't take precautions. You didn't do what it takes to protect yourself from men who just cannot control themselves. You see, in the desert, a woman goes out without covering herself, without hijab. She's leaving herself open. I mean, that guy, he sees that woman just bending over the well, and he's like, I gotta have that. I can't control myself. You know what it means to be modest. We see this rape. You're a feminist. I'm a feminist. And we know what rape culture is. We see it to a much lesser degree in our society, where people say, well, what was she wearing? Oh, well, a miniskirt? She was asking for it, right? Can't you see that that's the culture in these countries, in these Muslim majority countries where they follow the Quran, where they follow Sharia law? Can't you see it's the same thing on a hyper scale? It's the same thing, but it's a lot higher up there. It's a lot more potent. I can't find the right word. Why do your principles suddenly change? You're trying to downplay. Oh, it's in their culture. They're just more modest. Anna, you know that a lack of a woman's modesty in those cultures could get her killed, could get her raped, and it will be justified because of the culture. How can you not defend women? Such a good feminist.
They misinterpreted that and, smeared me online. But what I want to say is it's totally fine to say, look, we have cultural differences, right? Our women do not have to wear burqas. They don't have to wear headdresses. That doesn't make them immodest. That doesn't make them bad people. Our culture is different.
Our culture is different? Our culture is better, Anna. Our culture is better. Admit it. Admit it is better that a woman can go out on the streets without having to cover her hair, without having to cover her face. That is a superior culture, a culture in which women are free, in which women have less of this expectation, this unfair expectation of being this modest, pure being that men aren't expected to be. Any culture that doesn't put that unfair standard on women is a superior culture. We see in any society where women are free, comparatively to in other societies where women have essentially all of the same rights as men. And in this country, women do have all the same rights as men now. Is there sexism in forms that are very hard to control? Yes, and it happens for both genders, and we can talk about that. That's a whole other separate issue. But for the sake of comparison with the rest of the world, we are by far superior when it comes to gender equality. It's not even an argument. When you talk about the Middle East, our culture, when it comes to the treatment of our citizens, of half the population, it is by far superior. So don't just say it's a difference of culture. Own your culture. Be proud of it. Be proud that you can walk out on the street without having to cover yourself. Be proud of it and be thankful for once. I sometimes think back, what if I had been born in one of these countries? And I was thinking about this when I was 12 and younger in 5th grade. And I thought for a moment, I was reading about these women being married at the age of 11, 12. And I was thinking, oh my God, if I was living in these countries, and I'm a very vocal person. If I was living in one of these countries, I would be married to some old man. I would live under the thumb of men, and I wouldn't have any autonomy. I wouldn't have any control over my life, and I would have nothing. It feels like you're choking. I mean, when you hear about these women living in these societies, how can you not feel like you're choking? They don't have a voice. Anna. And who's giving them a voice? Certainly not you. Read this book. Read this book. It's called Princess. It's by Jean Sasson. And it's about a Saudi Arabian princess and her experience of being a woman in Saudi Arabia. Now, I know Syria is different from Saudi Arabia, but we're talking about a culture that is derived from, it's similar. I mean, of course there are differences, there are different degrees. However, it is by far a less free society for women than here. You have to be willing to admit when something is better. A culture where I'm not going to be married off. A culture where I don't have to worry about being killed for adultery or for being raped. You know, sometimes women themselves are stoned for being raped because, you know, you have to have 4 male witnesses, and that's kind of hard. I mean, especially if the 4 male witnesses are the ones raping you, you think they're going to testify on your behalf that they were raping you and get their heads cut off? Nope. They would love to see us stoned. It's not a difference. It's a matter of which one is superior. And equality and freedom and liberation of women will always win out in that battle.
So you have to understand that you cannot be misogynistic toward these women. You cannot, you know,
right, exploitative, derogatory,
exactly.
any of those things.
I think that kind of education program is completely acceptable, especially when you have stark differences like that.
Yeah, and again, I think it's totally legitimate to see the gulf in what we see as the average treatment of women in a lot of countries from the region, and how many people in our country, oddly enough, the liberals obviously far more liberal in their view of women than the conservatives, who are the people who are so afraid of it, when they want their women to be modest and stay in the home too.
I just hate John. Everything that comes out of his mouth. I just hate him, and he has this like smug attitude. Does anyone else see that? He's just so smug. I don't like you. I really strongly dislike you.
That's what always strikes me as so weird. But if you go back through the history of waves of immigration, those cultures were pretty different a lot of. I mean, the Chinese culture is different than Japanese culture and American culture. And almost anyone that comes in from most parts of the world is probably going to be a little bit more conservative in their treatment of women compared to the United States, except for Europe, but they allow us to visit as well. Like, people are different and have different values, but America has a history of hundreds of years of integrating populations of every sort of person that appears in the world.
It was just a couple of decades ago, we didn't let black people sit in the front of the bus or eat at this lunch counters that we eat out. So as soon as we get our shit together, everyone else has to get their shit together immediately, or else you're a lower culture than us.
John. Wait, no, you're not John. I don't even know your name. Forget your name. Jimmy. You just admitted it. We have our shit together. We live in a healthy, good society. You just admitted it. And yeah, people do need to get their shit together. We live in a modern world. Are we not allowed to condemn those who have values that are in stark contrast, in opposition to our democratic values? Own your values, Jimmy. You guys are all so similar. You all echo the same opinion. I don't even know the difference anymore. Own your values. They're better. And yes, we have to expect other people to get their shit together, because they are seeing examples of better societies. They should model themselves after these better societies. Are you saying they shouldn't follow our example? Are you saying that our society isn't better? You just admitted it was a second ago that we have our shit together, and that implies that our society is good and better. So shouldn't they follow? I mean, we're talking, for example, let's talk about science. Let's say there's a new theory in science that is superior to all other theories. But then you have scientists who are constantly protesting that theory despite the fact that it is a superior theory. Are you saying that the others in the scientific community shouldn't live up to the new standard, the better standard, the higher standard, the more accurate standard? You wouldn't say that about science, so why are you giving nations that much wiggle room?
So that's kind of fucked up. Also, the
I'm not
Catholics have
saying
been
you can have
raping fucking
concerns.
boys for decades. So what's that culture about?
The Catholics have been raping boys for fucking decades? So that, what can you even say to that? What does that even have to do with what happened in Cologne? It's not like it's written into Catholic law that boys should, that these Catholic priests should be doing this to boys. If you want to talk about that in a separate video, then yeah, let's go ahead. Let's talk about that in a separate video. But what does it have to do with this? You're saying that as if to disqualify the severity of what happened in Cologne. It doesn't make sense. Come on, Jimmy. What? No one is defending. I mean, I'm sure there are people defending the Catholic Church, but I would say the vast majority of Americans are not in favor of what the Catholic Church was doing, what many of these priests were doing. You think that people are defending those guys? This is really the problem. This was about what happened to these women who were victimized, who are now victims because of what these men did. These men who do come from countries where women are not respected in the same way, where women who do not veil themselves, do not cover themselves, do not cover their hair, do not wear hijab, who are not Muslim, are viewed as less and as asking for it. They have a right to rape them because they're not Muslim, because they're not dressed correctly. That is the justification. This video should have focused on them and condemned them and acknowledged the fact that they do come from a culture where it is more likely that these men, when they are exposed to a free and modern society, will not be prepared for it. You address that a little bit when Anna says that these guys should be put into culture camps. I know she didn't express it that way, but the fact that you're taking away from this, you're minimizing it by trying to bring up other egregious examples from different demographics. There's something really messed up with that. That's really wrong.
And they've been covering that shit up. And by the way, Germany, Trump gave a speech in New Hampshire just the other day where he said, oh, the poor Germans, they never had this problem before. There are over 7,000 reported cases of rape and sexual assault in Germany every year, and which we know goes largely underreported. So using those numbers, that's 20 rapes a day in Germany. So let's stop pretending like somehow rape is not a problem in all cultures.
What? Let's stop pretending that rape isn't a problem in all cultures? What? Yeah, rape happens everywhere. It happens in every single country. I mean, it happens sometimes in one place more than it happens in another. Now, if murder has happened where I live, but I live in a relatively safe state. I live in a relatively safe town. Now, if I go over to Harlem or go over into the city, I am in a place where murder is more common. Would it then be fair to say, hey, this state that I'm from is just as bad as New York City? I mean, murder happened here, murder happened there. It's the same. I mean, this is a problem everywhere. Murder is a problem everywhere. What? No. Yes, murder happens everywhere. but you have to be wary when it happens more in one location than in another. I don't even understand what you guys are trying to... It's just... You see, it's such an illogical thing to say that one does not even know how to respond exactly, because it should be such a simple retort. But usually people don't even say what you say, so we're not used to we're not able to retort because it's so basic. Like, I can't even, I've never encountered such stupidity. I can't even. There we go.
This group had been stuck in a train station. When a train arrived,
Island. It's true that priority is being given to Syrians.
أصابهم ويبحثون عن إقصاء عندنا ننجب منهم لأننا سوف نفتح بلادهم.
He said make it with anyone or make anything.
We are 400 people, okay? How I can bring the girl to here? Germany is facing a drastic number of would be trapped at the railway station in Budapest, now deciding to walk.
We are afraid. We are in danger every day, every minute. They're coming inside. They want to kill each other. You have to do something. Someone has to protect us. They are in our house. We are the victims. We are not them.
So, und wir vermehren uns immer mehr. Ihr Deutschen kriegt ja keine Kinder. Ihr kriegt höchstens, wenn es hochkommt, 2 Kinder. Wir machen 7, 8. Alhamdulillah. Okay, Kollege? Und dann nehmen wir uns auch nochmal 4 Frauen, dann haben wir 22 Kinder. So macht Allah Azza wa Jal, der allmächtige Gott, macht das so, dass wir euch erobern, nicht mit Krieg hier in Deutschland, sondern mit Geburtenraten, erstens. Und zweitens, wir heiraten eure Töchter. Ja? Und deine Tochter wird Kopftuch tragen.